the last 6 months have been quite dramatic in terms of the economy and for the entire world. The UK labour market is in a period of deep freeze. We are now seeing even less activity than in Christmas week, which is renowned for its decreased number of vacancies and people moving between jobs and so on. Now, thanks to the job retention scheme, or the famously called furlough scheme, it saved around 4.2 million jobs and avoided a lot of redundancies. However, the furlough scheme has been modified in July, and it's also due to come to an end in October. And with this change, what impact will this have on jobs, the economy, and generally the jobs market is the most important question. Now, in this webinar, we want to discuss and help people navigate through these very difficult times. And our panel of experts will share their tips and insights into the jobs market, especially for the insurance sector, and will give you good enough tips, help you remain focused, but most importantly, remain positive, and help you identify the opportunities that are available, and help you find your next successful job, and help you with your career aspirations as well. I'm delighted to welcome all three of our panelists. We have assembled an impressive team, leading experts in recruitment, and they all specialize in the insurance market. Firstly, I would like to introduce Francesca. Francesca is the Managing Director for Insure Recruitment, and she's very passionate, and she's the backbone of Insure Recruitment and built the company from scratch. And she's very particular about client and candidate journey, and ensures that they have a good experience throughout their recruitment and placement process. So welcome, Francesca, to this webinar.
Having me.
And joining Francesca, we have Marion, and Marion works along with Francesca, and Marion is a managing consultant for the local region. And Marion also comes with a lot of experience in the insurance sector, and she's equally passionate about candidate and client journey, and she will also be sharing lots of tips in this webinar. So welcome, Marion.
Thank you, Kristen.
And last but not least, we have Dean. Dean Nixon is the Managing Director of Nixon Allen Recruitment, again specializing in recruitment for insurance. And again, Dean comes with a wealth of experience. He works where Stu has as a recruiter and also a headhunter, and is very passionate and built this business and built lots of good relationship with senior leaders and professionals within the insurance sector. Welcome, Dean, to this webinar, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for having me, Chris.
Good. So I'm going to start off by getting your perspective on what's going on in the jobs market. How is recruitment different right now? And I'll start with Dean.
Okay, so I think to begin with, the good news that sort of historically in insurance, we're in a situation where demand for good people is very high, and there's a relatively low supply of people with insurance experience. So as an insurance professional, that puts you in a really good position where there's high demand and low supply, which has driven salaries to increase. And I think that those sort of long-term trends have been driven by demographics, whereby you've got an aging insurance population and people over time retiring. There are a lack of new entrants into the market, and insurance in the UK, overall is thriving, particularly with the amount of private equity money that's kicking around in the market. So those kind of longer term macro trends, I think, will remain. So that's the good news. Obviously, when the COVID crisis struck, that was a huge shock to the sector, and I think we had a situation where initially, particularly until policymakers caught up, there was kind of blind panic by lots of my clients out there who just stopped, overnight recruiting across the board. So that period of time lasted a few weeks, and I think confidence started to be restored as the Chancellor and the government stepped in to put in support for businesses. As that happened, you saw a kind of second phase of sort of adjustment where insurance businesses then began to have their people working remotely and manage to cope with the situation. And then from a very low managed to start kind of recruiting, but utilising technology, where perhaps they wouldn't have done, pre-crisis, and using technology to recruit people, through Zoom and other sort of video conferencing methods. I would say that over the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, things have, from a very low base, started to normalise, and we're now starting to see sort of increased levels of recruitment going on, which is good. Okay. And I would say over the sort of medium term, I think we will return to a situation where there's high demand for insurance professionals and relatively low supply. I think that sort of macro picture will return. Wow. It will just take. I think the current situation is just a temporary one, and that overarching situation should return before too long.
That's a positive picture. You're absolutely right about the private equity, because that trend remained on. People were still, keeping the money aside, and acquisitions going on, and mergers and so on. So I think that will give it that big boost after this temporary lull period. Great, thanks for that.
Thank you.
Francesca, what's your spin on the current situation? How is recruitment different right now?
We're seeing more clients at the beginning of lockdown generally spend time trying to change their processes to allow them to onboard staff remotely. And we're seeing more of a shift towards people or employers actually starting to recruit people indefinitely to work from home. So we have been consulting our clients and helping them out with the interview process, again doing sort of video interviews, replacing the first stage interview for the client, and doing a lot more testing and onboarding staff to work indefinitely to work from home. So we've seen a big shift towards that over the past few weeks. We've seen an increase in job opportunities as well, which is good and positive. And we've seen a lot of clients start to streamline their processes and potentially sort of looking at automation, which maybe has made some sort of redundancy in the market, but I think it's also opened up other opportunities after that. So it's looking more positive.
It's looking positive. Excellent. So work from home has been embraced, and clients are tapping into that potential.
Yeah, and I think also, we're not out of the woods yet, are we, with everything, and with the potential of another sort of peak of cases with coronavirus, especially coming into winter. The more the staff can be onboarded remotely, the better, I think.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Francesca. And Marion, finally to you, what's your take on the current situation and the trend?
Yeah, I mean, I'll mirror what Francesca said. Our vacancy rate has increased by about 75% pre-lockdown. Obviously, lockdown came and everybody, as Dean said, closed their doors, not going to recruit. And then things sort of settled down and they managed to get all their staff working from home. And we were very fortunate to have some interviews continue through lockdown, and people have been onboarded through lockdown, which has been very successful. Okay. I think the important message now going through the recruitment process for candidates is, this is your opportunity to shine amongst your competitors. and it's very important that they invest more time in finding a job than they would have done pre-lockdown.
Right. Okay. So I think the general trend, what I've inferred, it is looking positive, though temporarily a bit of difficulty in terms of finding job, but in the medium to long term, things are going to look better and take shape in a few months' time, which is probably what people would want to hear, and that's the fact. It's coming from the specialist in the recruitment field. Good. Now, in the interim, I know still the number of people to a particular vacancy is quite high. There's more people to a particular vacancy. In the current climate, what can candidates do to make their CV highly engaging, Francesca?
The CV is about getting you in front of an employer, so I would try and keep it as concise as possible, to ideally a minimum of 2 pages, if you can. You need to make a note of the daily tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis. Think about the problems that you solve and your areas of expertise. You need to have content that demonstrates how you add value to the employer, and think about your areas of accomplishments and demonstrate how you've grown as an individual. Generally start your CV with a cracking personal statement. So explain what you can offer, what you can achieve, and follow this up with proof, specific skills and experience. Put your work history at the top and work downwards, and then the least important aspect of your CV at the end, so potentially hobbies, interests, and like education at the end as well, unless you're going for a graduate job.
Okay, great. Would anyone like to add anything to that point about creating a highly engaging CV?
Could I just chip in a little bit to support that, if that's okay? So I think within insurance, there are kind of buzzwords and terminology, things kind of jump out, and often employers initially will just scan a CV and give it quite sort of short attention to begin with. And it's not until something really jumps out at them that they will spend more time on that. So, I tend to find that, the nuts and bolts of your job, so kind of classes of insurance, might sort of jump out or resonate with a certain employer, or specialist IT systems such as Actress, or, sort of some of the others that are out there. I think some of those kind of insurance kind of buzzwords, they often sort of jump out when people scan a CV. So I think all of the stuff discussed is important, but just kind of making sure that you get some of those insurance specific terminology in there as well, because they perhaps will catch the eye and give an employer more time to sort of scrutinise your CV and read it properly.
I'd also ensure that when you're creating your CV for a job opportunity, that you're reading the job descriptions, checking out the desirable skills of the role, and ensuring if you've done that you're inputting that into the CV that you're submitting to the role. And again, highlighting key areas.
The buzzwords.
Memory.
Excellent. Marion, would you like to add anything to it, or?
Dean and Francesca have covered the majority of it. I agree with highlighting keywords. Most applications go through to recruitment rather than the hiring manager. They're not necessarily insurance trained, but have been tasked to find certain people, and they will have been given keywords to search through a CV.
Right.
It's really important that those key skills and your attributes that you can bring to a company are on your CV.
Excellent. I think we will stay with you, Marion, and are cover letters still important, and how can candidates write a strong cover letter to support their CV?
We are finding with clients that covering letters are becoming more of the normal at the moment. We encourage all our candidates to read through the job description and research the company, and when introducing themselves with a covering letter, that they take 3 to 5 aspects of the requirements of the job and showcase their transferable skills into those requirements. Also talk about, at the end of your covering letter, what you know about the company and how you feel that your skills can be worth a lot to them. And just not always talk about yourself, but talk about the company itself, what they do, and then flip it as to your transferable skills. It's all about showcasing yourself against, you know, as I said before, there's a lot of competition for each job, and you just need to make sure that you're the person that gets that interview. And the more work and research you do into the job description and the company would put you in more good stead for that interview.
Great. So as much as an engaging CV, a strong covering letter is equally important because they go hand in hand and complement each other.
Very much so, yeah.
Great. Thanks for that. Now that I have a good CV and a good covering letter, which are the best job boards for finding work? If I may bring Dean to comment on that, and then if you others have anything to add, I'll come to you.
Okay, so the ones that we tend to use and have the most success with are the Reed website and also Indeed. They tend to be the two that we use. So having recruited for sort of 20 years, I've kind of found those to be the best and most useful for, you know, the sorts of candidates that I'm looking for. I don't have any data on that. It's just kind of experience and kind of my gut feel over the years. So they're the two that we use. I do know that lots of our competitors use Reed and Indeed as well. So they'd be the two that I would recommend. I think the good thing about those two is that they both regularly advertise on TV, and you know, I think they're you know, they drive a lot of you know, they drive a lot of uptake because of their TV advertising from both candidates and potential employers and recruiters. So I think they'd be the main two. What I would also say when registering your details on there, just a couple of pointers really, just to make sure that when you're engaging with recruiters on there, that you're finding out the name of the business that the actual opportunity's with, because sometimes a role could be advertised on a website 2 or 3 times by you know, different recruiters, and it could actually be the same role. And what you don't want is kind of a duplication process where the same CVs landing on the same desk 2 or 3 times, because it just doesn't look professional, and it can cause issues with recruiters having disputes. So I would always ask, once you speak to the recruiter, who the company is, and make sure that you're not applying for the same job on a number of occasions. And then subsequent to that, if you decide to then engage with that recruiter kind of more widely and look at other opportunities, then I would just make sure that that recruiter isn't sending your CV out anywhere in the market unless you've given express permission for them to do so. Because, I mean, the great thing about putting your CV on those jobs boards is that lots of people have access to it. So that's clearly a positive thing when looking for work. But what you don't want to do is to lose control and kind of have a third party just putting your CV out there without your permission. So always make sure that you manage the recruiters properly and explain to them that they shouldn't send the CV anywhere without your permission. And then you can control the process and keep a log in terms of the businesses that have received your CV, and just kind of manage the process in a much more organised and better way. So yeah, I think job boards absolutely have a place, but just need to make sure that that you're managing that process and keeping on top of things around where your CV is going out in the market.
That's great. Thank you. That's really some good, interesting points there, Dean. Thank you. Francesca, Marion, anyone want to step in and add to it? Any of your insights?
Very, very similar to Dean, to be honest, actually. They're the same job boards that I'll go to as well, which is interesting. Over the years, we've used a variety, and they just tend to be the most successful for us. But we also ensure that we've changed our CRM systems recently, and we've got a brilliant candidate dashboard, so candidates can get set up job alerts and that sort of thing, so that they can apply very quickly to job opportunities. And also, when we personally sort of submit sort of CVs, we give our candidates an email confirmation of where their CVs are being submitted to. So they've got full transparency on that. So
they can track, they can see the entire
process.
process. Good, excellent.
I want to pick up on a point that Dean made actually with regards to vacancies being advertised by numerous recruiters, and I think it is really important for candidates to make sure that any recruiter that is putting you forward for a job lets you see the job description, gives you a link to the company's website, so that when you are offered an interview, you're fully versed in what you're being interviewed for. I speak to clients all the time, and they say to me, "Oh, we interviewed somebody last week and they didn't know anything about the job. Can you make sure that your candidates are fully prepped?" Because unfortunately, there are recruiters out there that will gunfire CVs without telling candidates, and as Dick said, it does look really unprofessional, because if you can't manage your recruiter and where they're sending your CV, can you manage clients that you're working with? So it's a double-edged sword, really. It's really important to make sure relationship with the recruiter that you choose is the right relationship.
Good. Thank you for that, Marion, and all of you. So, yes, there is the job boards like Reed, Indeed, and Monster, and a few others. But there's something else very powerful, and that's what I want to talk about and bring you all into that. But I'll start with Francesca on it. LinkedIn is a fantastic place. Lots of jobs being advertised, people looking, people connecting. What can I do, or what can candidates do to get themselves noticed, improve their profiles, not just LinkedIn and other social media sites? Francesca, your insight and tips on it.
Well, I think from a social media perspective, you want to be definitely noticed for good reasons. And I would suggest that 50%, or in my experience, around 50% of employers at some point will check out your social media profile, whether that's on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I'd very much start, if it was, for instance, on Facebook, that your privacy preferences are, you look at your privacy preferences. So if you've got any photos, comments, anything you've shared that is being made public, you might not want a prospective employer to see. I would ensure that you're either deleting or rechecking your preferences, so that it doesn't potentially put the prospective employer off. I'd also, on LinkedIn, very much have a very professional headshot for your photograph. I would keep your profile concise, not too clunky. Too much information can set people off again. So create something that stands out, that's searchable, that so people can find it using like keywords, again highlighting these words in your profile. And once your sort of profile is completed, you can switch on sort of open to opportunities, so that recruiters can get in touch with you about job opportunities. You can start engaging and following companies on LinkedIn that you potentially want to work for. Start networking with those hiring managers. start commenting or making comments on LinkedIn. Hashtags, for instance, open to work is trending at the moment. I think you can even get something in your picture that says you're open to work as well. You can also speak to people in your network who have worked with you in the past or could recommend you, write you a testimonial. Again, that would look really good on your profile as well.
Great. Thank you for that. Dean, would you like to chip in and add anything more to it?
In terms of the LinkedIn profile, I think it's just important that you put effort into that kind of what the public sees. You know, there's lots of people out there that are going to be seeing your profile, and particularly when you're open to work, I think it's just very important that you just put some time and effort into making sure that looks professional. You know, you wouldn't put a CV out to the general public that you hadn't kind of proofread or made sure that looked professional and you put a lot of effort into. And I think it's the same with LinkedIn as well. I think people sometimes create a LinkedIn profile on a whim and perhaps then kind of have the intention of going back to it and sometimes never do. But I'd actually spend some time and making sure that looks professional and is giving a really great impression in the same way that you would your CV. So that would just be my kind of general advice on that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Marion?
Totally agree with both of the comments that have made, and I also we read so many different profiles. What you don't want to do is overkill. Sometimes less is more. Put in your job title, your key skills, hashtag open to work, is enough to be searchable. And then underneath in the other part of your LinkedIn profile, you can put more detail in there.
Okay, great. Thank you for all those great points, everyone. So moving on, we started with job boards like Indeed, and then we moved on to LinkedIn, which is sort of a mid-trend in the recruiting space, I think. And the very latest, because forced by the crisis, is video interviews. So how should a candidate prepare for a video interviews, and what are the main things I need or a candidate should consider about video interviews? If I can start with Marion, and then I'll come on to the others.
Thank you, Kirsten. I think the most important part of a video interview is make sure that your technology is compatible with how the client wants to video interview you. So that's major, and you can go on to the majority of video links and do trials, and perhaps do it with your partners or your friend or a work colleague to make sure it is working correctly and there's no sort of glitches or anything before you actually go and have the video interview with the client. Personally, I think video interviews should be treated exactly the same as a face-to-face interview. So smart, presentable, make sure you're fully prepared, you've got your company information, the job description and a copy of your CV in front of you. Also with prepared notes and questions for your interviewer. Make sure that you're in a quiet location, ideally not in a room where people can pass in front of you or behind you. Always try and have a clear background. Obviously today my background's not so clear, but it's not too distracting, I hope. And just be how you would be in a face-to-face. Make sure that you have the eye contact, make sure you're smiling, and if you don't understand the question, or if there has been a blip with the Wi-Fi, because we all get it sometimes, that don't feel afraid to re-ask the question that had been asked of you, rather than trying to mumble your way through.
Okay, good, thank you. Francesca or Dean?
I'd just like to echo that, really. I think the important thing is to just treat it in exactly the same way that you would a face-to-face interview, as much as possible, just in respect of the research that you do beforehand, the time that you put into preparing, because it's just as important, even though it's in obviously a slightly different format. The very simple things in a face-to-face interview, like kind of good body language, actively listening, good eye contact, I think are even more important, because I think it is more difficult to build rapport on a Zoom call or by video. So I think you kind of have to be aware of that and perhaps just try a little bit harder. It is more difficult, but just having a little bit of an awareness of that, and trying to sort of engage with the interviewer.
Excellent. Francesca, would you like to chip in and add anything more to that point?
We've actually written quite a lot of insights on video interviewing, which we're happy to share with anyone that would like to read them, and generally covered some really good points there. I don't think it will ever necessarily replace the face-to-face interview. I think once it's safe to do so, the face-to-face interview will overtake the video interview, but in this pandemic, it's been absolutely vital for staff. I think it's more, you have to work a lot harder to be remembered via video than you have on a face-to-face basis. So
absolutely.
Certain ways, different ways you can conduct yourself when video interviews. Yeah.
Great. I think it will catch on, and there will be more and more video interviews, and maybe in the final stages there may be face-to-face training, so not training, face-to-face interviews happening. But I think it's a positive trend, and I think you can also use that in a sense without making too distracting. In the background, you can have things that kind of emulates your personality. If you like football, I don't know, football T-shirts and things in the background. Never know. But I think, you're absolutely right. It's about bringing your personality. You can't smile. A smile is very, very important, and eye contact by looking through the lens. Very important in a video interview. Perfect. I'm going to stick with Francesca. We spoke about job boards, all the portals. What is the best way for candidates to discover the most recent vacancies? Because there could be quite a lot coming through, and like you said, same jobs advertised many times. What's the best strategy for identifying the most recent vacancies?
Yeah, I would suggest setting up job alerts is your best chance of being alerted to vacancies as soon as they come on job boards. So I would I would actually go onto Google for jobs and put in what sort of jobs you're looking for, and see what comes up. And then you can actually set up alerts on Google Jobs to be informed when a recruiter or a company has got a specific job that matches your requirements. We have had some opportunities very recently where within 24 hours we've got over 100 applications. And we're going through this, trying to view as many CVs as possible and go through the process and give everyone an opportunity. And I think that, unfortunately, if you're quite late in the day applying, the client might have enough interviews already booked in, and you could miss out. So job alerts are really key to be in the forefront of recruiters and employers' minds when they're applying for job opportunities. Again, with recruiters, for instance, our site, you can actually set up job alerts, and as soon as we have a vacancy, which we might not put on read, you can take first hand from us and get in contact with us. Communications is a two-way thing. We've got thousands of candidates that we have on our database, and we can't always think of everybody. So it's you can get in contact with us as soon as you see something, and be the forefront of our minds. So job alerts key. Yeah.
Okay. Marion, would you like to add anything more to it in terms of discovering the most recent job vacancies?
Stay active on the sites. Always check in with your recruiter. As Francesca said, on our website, when you register, you set your preferences as to what type of jobs you want to hear about, location-wise. So as and when our team are putting vacancies onto the database, before we've advertised it or reached out to anyone, it automatically goes on to the system, and if you've put in the keywords of that's your preference for a job, you will be emailed about the job straight away. And there is your opportunity to, you know, be one of the first applications.
Okay, great. And Dean?
Yeah, I think just being all over the online stuff is obviously important, as we've discussed, but also just every now and again to put a call into your recruiter, or if you're working with a couple of the recruiters, put a call into those people, just kind of to let them know and check in with them. You know, a good recruiter will check in with you and let you know when vacancies come up, but they might not always have the time to just put a call in for a general chat. But I would suggest every now and again just to pick the phone up and have a conversation, and just a regular update with your recruiter, and just kind of bring them up to speed on how you are, how the search is going, and, you know, for them to have an opportunity to talk to you about any potential opportunities or things that they might have coming up in the future. So I think taking the time to build those personal relationships is important as well. You know, there are lots of people I've placed whereby, you know, we've just got chatting about something, and I've mentioned an opportunity to them that for some reason I didn't expect the candidate to be interested in, but just on the back of a general chat, really, you know, just a conversation, you know, that, you know, we've put something together, and that's been an opportunity that's progressed for that candidate. So the more conversations and kind of the more effort you put into conversations with your network, the better, really. And that might not even just be recruiters, that could be kind of more generally ex-colleagues, anyone in the market. You know, the more conversations, the better, really, just to make sure that you know, you're picking up on any opportunities that arise.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I'm just conscious of time. We have 3 more minutes before the 45-minute deadline. So, final parting words to people who are going to watch this webinar, people who are watching live, and people who may be worried about their future because of redundancies or risk of redundancies looming around. What's the parting advice to people? I'll start with you, Dean, and then I'll come to Francesca and then Marion.
Okay, so to people who are experienced insurance professionals or are looking to build a career in insurance, I would say that kind of the overarching picture is that the industry is a fabulous place for them to build a career and to earn good money through their career, and you know, that won't change. That won't change any time soon. I think we're temporarily in a situation where there have been redundancies, and where, you know, the sort of demand for people has diminished. But that is only temporary, and you know, that situation over time, I'm sure, will normalise. So hang in there, continue to do the right things around looking for a job. But you know, most people will come through this just fine, and find something that you know, that is a good opportunity for them, and allow them to continue building their careers. You know, it's you know, things will return to normal.
Great, thank you. Francesca, if I may bring you in now.
Yeah, just keep on remaining positive. You know, we're seeing an increase in opportunities. We are sending people, we have online, you know, weekly insights to help individuals throughout redundancy processes, you know, to remain positive, and to, you know, key sort of tips to help you with your profile on social media and interviews and how to search for jobs. So, you know, if anybody wants any more insights, then please get in touch with us. I'm here to help you through this process.
And finally, Marion.
Totally agree with Dean. The insurance arena is a good career arena to go to. yes, we are going through a transitional change. There are redundancies, companies downsizing, etc. But what you need to remember is insurance is a necessity. Insurance is not going to go away. It's not a depleting industry. And just stay positive, keep talking to people, keep networking, read blogs. We issue blogs on our website every week about how to cope with COVID, redundancies, video interview tips. You know, just reach out, and if we can help anybody at all, you know, let's do this.
Perfect. Well, thank you for so much for sharing all your insights and ideas and tips. I think the general consensus is the crisis is temporary, and the insurance is a very resilient sector. I think we will bounce back with some of the points Dean mentioned about private equity remaining active in the background. In the meantime, everyone remain positive. Connect with colleagues. Connect with recruiters, because they have a very vital role to play. Use all the articles, blogs, all forms of support, and hang in there. And then very soon everything will ease, and then we will all return to normality. In the meantime, if you would like to get in touch with any of our panelists today, please write to Wiser Academy. We will publish all their contact details on Wiser Academy's website. And very soon we will make this webinar available for people to watch on demand as well. And we'll leave the details there. But thank you, Dean, Francesca, and Marion, for taking time out of your busy schedule, especially like you mentioned, you've received hundreds of applications, which means things are getting back to a bit of a normality. But thank you for taking time to be part of this webinar with Wiser Academy. And we will soon see everyone on a different topic in the near future. Thank you, and bye for now.